Good evening. This is the Tuesday, September 5th Nominations and Appointments Committee. I see that we have our first applicant, Brad Allman, virtual tonight. Brad, can you hear us?
Yep.
Great. Okay. The process of the committee is just to ask you a few questions to sort of get a sense of if you're familiar with the position that you're applying for. And also at the end, if you have any questions relating to the position that you can ask. The first question that I have for you is, do you have an understanding of exactly what the HVAC board involves?
Some of it I do. I mean, I've been to a couple of the meetings because I teach the third year HVAC program at BCTC. So I've been down there on a couple of occasions with Jay Montgomery and when Kim Bredigan was on the board. So so some of it, some of it I know. I mean, obviously there's probably a lot more to it, but.
And how did you find out about the position?
Jay Montgomery asked if I was interested. There was open spots, and my boss Jeff George, he was on the committee for a long time, and he wanted to step down, and he asked me if I would be interested. I said yeah, and then unfortunately he passed away then a couple months later.
Okay. Did they mention to you that the board meets quarterly at 4:30?
Yep. 4:30. Yep. Yeah. The last ones I've been at were down at the wastewater plant down off of Route 10.
Okay. And you feel with your schedule that that won't be an issue for you in attending meetings?
No.
Okay, good. And Councilor Goodman Hendershitz just came into the room. She's also on the board.
Hello. Give me a chance to grab my breath here.
This is Brad Allman. He's applying for the HVAC board.
Hi, Brad. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm pretty good. I don't know what questions we're asking you at this point, so.
I basically asked about if he was familiar with the responsibilities on the board, how he found out about the position, and about his schedule.
Okay. Is there anything that you feel was important to the board to address?
That I know of that's important to address. Is that what you're asking?
Or what would you think would be important from your perspective, from your experiences? What would be important for HVAC to be looking at?
I mean, I know. I mean, there would be some code, code related, stuff. I mean, the codes change, every couple of years, and how to, implement them and address them when needs arise. Depending on what the situation is.
Yeah, and I'm speaking from the perspective of someone that lives in a city row home. Sees a lot of work being done in my neighborhood, and I'm never sure the quality of the contractors, what they're doing right or what they aren't doing right. But I always, when someone moves in next door to me, it's like, okay, what are they going to do, and what do I have to be concerned about for the safety of my own property?
Yep.
Do you see any guidelines the city should be giving to contractors and such regarding what they should or shouldn't be doing? Because you said the codes are constantly being updated.
Yeah, I mean, if the city requires, if the city of Reading requires certain things, that are different than what the code requires, like amendments or whatever, then that should be distributed to all the contractors that that are working in the city, so they're made aware of it. But yeah, I mean, yeah, the contractors should be made aware of changes and different things that the city requires.
don't have any other questions.
Okay, I don't have any other questions related to the position that you're applying for. I just have a question out of curiosity.
Mhm.
I see that your place of employment is the Reading and Blue Mountain Railroad.
That's correct.
What do you do for the railroad?
I do all their HVAC and all their plumbing. So we take care of the majority of the Reading Airport, of the hangars, of all the HVAC and plumbing, and we go from there all the way up north. Yeah, I mean to a little bit past Scranton. But yeah, I do all the HVAC and plumbing, and then I also teach. Like I said, I teach the 3rd-year apprenticeship program through BCTC, which gets the guys. Basically, I'm teaching the codes for the guys to prep them to take the City of Reading journeyman's license test at the end of the 3rd year.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yep.
I have no other further questions. Do you have any questions?
No, nothing that comes, to the top of my head. Like I said, I mean, I've known Jay and Kim when he was there inspecting for a long time. And I sat in on some of these meetings previously, so it's not new to me. If you know what I'm saying.
Great. Well, thank you for applying and thank you for taking the time this evening to allow us to interview you. And
Yep.
From this point, Shelley, do you want to fill in on what happens next?
Sure. So your appointment resolution will be on council's agenda next week on Monday. After which, assuming that there's a positive vote and the appointment goes through, you'll get a packet of information from the clerk's office explaining kind of what's next. And you'll need to come into the office. The city clerk will need to swear you in, so make you all official, and then you are good to go.
Okay. Sounds good.
Thank you for your time.
Yep. Thank you.
Next person we have is Pamela.
Is Pamela virtual or in person?
I believe she said she was going to be here in person.
And Jeff, I'm assuming he's going to be virtual.
Correct. And he said he was going to log in a little bit early so that he was settled before it was his turn.
Okay.
We need to emphasize to council that someone needs to, for the interim, till the end of
Step up.
yeah. Even if people want to rotate through, however they want to do it. I prefer to be the same person, but
Right, I do too. Is that our job to do that or the person who is stepping on?
I would ask the person who is stepping off to state that publicly at the meeting. It's good if it's inside or okay.
Had a couple points where I had to be outside. I couldn't believe it. If you're out for like 5 minutes and you're drenched.
The only thing I had to do was walk, the only outside was from my car into the building. Or,
And she's been on for a while.
and then
2015.
Citizen doesn't require the city.
Been pretty good, Shelley. Remember, it's larger.
Yeah, I think we're better than we've been in a long time.
I think it's 4 years where.
I remember when I came on board, it was like there were so many
Yeah.
vacancies.
Yeah, I think we're doing a good job getting caught up and getting some of these boards full.
Let's need to figure out the magic something for the Citizens Initiative Commission.
Yeah, I don't know what to do about that.
I think it needs to be promoted. I don't think people know about it or understand.
Yeah, we're not doing as many in-person, like town hall type meetings either since COVID. That would be where I would have done those.
There were people coming out to this the way that we used to.
Yeah,
So even if you had them, I get the attendance.
that's true.
Oh, how do you know? Terrific. So cool here, great.
Feels good.
Yeah. We need him to be out and about, right?
No, I need to be out and about. Yes, I go in, but to the first.
Well, this is important.
Okay, that's why it's on my list.
I was trying to remember how many times I might have interviewed you.
I think we're about 3.
Yeah,
I think we're on about, I think it's like our 3rd or 4th.
nice to see
Oh,
you.
the last time he was on his birthday.
Yeah, yeah, right. Okay, so you know the process. Fine, for reappointment, but I don't think you know Chris Miller. And
No, hello, sir.
How are you?
Oh, terrific stuff.
This board is fairly new to me, so I think I'm gonna start out just because it's a reappointment. In your words, could you tell me a little bit about the board and what your position is?
So I serve on the board, and for the most part, we meet in this room at least once a month. And we address issues in light of the department, would be about the simplest way that I could put it. Some stuff that, things that we deal with are stuff that would directly address that civil service board would have to address. We don't address everything out of the department. We address specifically things that will come up in light of the police civil service board. So there have been situations where, because I serve also as a registered police chaplain, there will be things that happen. And so because all of them know what I do, or they know that I serve here, they'll come to me and say, well, I have a concern in light of this. And so when they do that, what I will do is address, well, I don't address it, but what I will do is I will send an email and let the rest of my team or the rest of the board know that this particular officer brought this to my attention. And if it's something that we can fix or we can work through, then we do, and if we can't, then I usually go back and say, no, I'm so sorry, sir, I could not help you with that situation. You need to take it somewhere else. It's not an issue that is police civil service board responsibility.
Is there ever, this is my question.
Okay.
I'm just curious, is there ever a conflict?
For me? No. Because when I'm a police chaplain, I'm a police chaplain, and I know wholeheartedly what my responsibilities are and are not out of being a police chaplain, and I understand what my responsibilities are. Like I said, in light of being a part of the police civil service board, I really can't tell you, yes, I know everything there is to know. So the reality for that is I can go back to the board members and say, this is what one of the officers brought to my attention. Is this something that we can address? And if it is, then we address it. If it is not. So they're having those things that we have actually addressed, and they're having those things that I had to go back and say, I'm so sorry, I couldn't.
Understood.
Would you feel comfortable in a general sense talking about some of the things that are concerns that need to be addressed?
I guess from my perspective, in light of being a part of both teams, let me start by saying this first. One of the greatest moves that I think that the department made when they made our retirement of the, because there are none of that. Those are, but when they made the retirement so very, very good. There were officers who were just kind of waiting around to figure out, am I gonna stay or am I gonna go? And some of those made the decision to stay because from what I'm understanding, for the most part, we have one of the very best retirement programs, whatever the proper terms is that you want to use in the area. Now, the other side of that is, and in light of being part of the Police Civil Service Board, years ago when I started, and I make it a point to sit in on the initial testing. So people are coming in off the street, I sit in on that. I sit in on promotions within the department. So when I first started doing this, you would have at least, I'm gonna say, a little over 200 people that would actually show up for the testing. The last class we did, I think we had, well, the first class was like 15 and the second class was like about 30. So I don't really know specifically what we could do that would alter that, but it's very disheartening, especially from the standpoint of seeing officers who, don't stay, and to see, the trouble that we're having. But then I also understand it's not just a Redmond Police Department issue. It's an issue across, I'm gonna say across the state. I don't know beyond that, but I'm gonna say it's an issue across the state. What we could do about it, I don't really know. It just becomes a concern.
Do you think that's because of the job requirements that people are?
I think that one of the problems that we have right now is there's just a poor, it's a term I'm going to use, in light of how people are seeing the police department the police in general. And so I think that in light of some of that very negative and very bad listening, something that will lead it. And again, I'm not saying that all officers are, do everything correct. I'm not in any kind of way saying that. But I'm willing to say, to stand up for this department and say, and I'm gonna say 98% are have a heart for the city, have a heart for the job, and are endeavoring to do that. That other 2%, and I don't really know who they are, so ask me. But that other 2%,
Right.
yeah, and then I've seen situations where things have been handled, where other officers felt like the way the situation was handled was not the best. And so I've been privy to those conversations when the person goes away, and now it's just the officers, and I have to be standing there, and now they're reading that on the right back. Right? Why did you handle that like that? That should not have been handled that way. So I've gotten to see both sides. So I think yes, your answer is yes, but then I think that just in general, for a lot of people, there's just a bad taste in police in general.
And that's national.
Yes.
I mean,
yes,
not just.
I'm absolutely right. And I'm looking for myself from a very honest place. I started as a police chaplain, and I've been doing, I got like 18 years in as a police chaplain. And if you'd have asked me 19 years ago what I thought of police, I would have told you not much. But people that I thought a great deal of said, I think you'll be very, very good at being a chaplain. I'm like, I don't really know what you're saying. I don't like police. And now I can't imagine my life without that. And even in light of this position of being a part of the Police Civil Service Board, was actually doing a ride on one of the officers who's now lieutenant. It's like, what you been up to, what's been going on? And I told him, and actually, put my paperwork in for be a part of the Police Civil Service Board, and told him, I don't know what I did wrong, but I had my paperwork, but I did something wrong, so I got rejected. He didn't cuss me out, but he all but cussed me out. Basically, whatever you got to fix to do in order for you to be police, to be a part of the Police Civil Service, you better get it done. Because there's things that you understand about what we do that nobody else does. And so you can help people understand better than a lot of people can, because you know. And I said, and I'll figure out what I did wrong and I'll trouble that. Now the flip side of that is you went on the minutes, and and he was actually a patrol officer. He started complaining about how, you know, things were not being done correctly, and I was like, well, you just shut up. So he went on to become a sergeant, today he's a lieutenant. I'm real proud of that. So he forced me into this, and I forced him into that.
Pretty Cam.
You can refer to me as any way that you.
Okay, that's the way I see it.
Yeah, so any way you refer to me, I'm gonna respond.
Because I hear what you say is so powerful. How do we get this information out of the community? Help change some of the stigma associated with policing. Because I see our officers and I see how hard they work and I see, you know, how committed they are. And when they come in, you know, first out of school, they really want to make a difference. Yet the community doesn't respect them in that way.
When I started, when I started as a police chief, I started because I felt like it's very easy to complain. It's something entirely different to step up and be, you know, I can be part of the problem, I can be part of the solution. And so for me, I see myself as part of the solution. So every opportunity that I get, I've been in town meetings and people have made comments about police officers. You pick whatever the latest bad thing that some officer did wherever in the United States. I've been in meetings with the general public, and you would think that that happens here. And so police are trying to explain, and nobody's going to listen. I can say, excuse me, can I say something? And I can say, as somebody who's part of this community, but also on a regular basis, and I'm not what they call a ceremonial chaplain. I'm one of the ones that shows up, that I'm out on the street, out in the neighborhood, whatever they go to, I'm there. So I get to be able to present from a totally different place in light of what's happening. We had a situation a couple, I think it was last year, where somebody was in the middle of the street, you know, with a gun shooting at people, although the state was on, but that's not it. That was good for the people that they were shooting at. The police don't know that. And so the police showed up and they jumped out of the car with their guns because again, they're saying to this person, you gotta put, no, they're trying. And in all honesty, they jumped out of the car, they did not say to police, would you please put the gun down. They were very, you know, direct in light of what they said. So it ended up this big, you know, you had NAACP, you had LG, forgive me, I get the names.
LGBT, yeah.
And so, you know, I got a call from the then chief saying, hey, we're having this meeting, did you come? Sure, yeah. And so they were like, no, they were ready to turn this city out. And I got to be able to say to them, hold up, wait a minute. You have a whole misunderstanding in light of what police do and how they do it. So by the time we all finished, they decided to have a prayer vigil rather than have a outright bad behavior on the streets of Bay. And I'm not saying that I'm solely responsible for them, but I am saying because there's things that I understand. And you know, I showed up in the meeting, they're like, oh, which group you with? So the chief called me. I'm with him. No matter what I may look like to y'all, I'm with him. He's the one that called me and invited me. So there are those of us who are just willing to say, can I address that? So I think it just comes from that place of people just being willing to not only listen, but people being willing to speak up. And to be able to speak up from a place of, I know for once to speak.
And I think, to be honest, that's what's helped Reading sort of maintain this levelness when everything's going on crazy across the rest of the state, the rest of the country. There's something that we have, our belief system, and people like you that make it as stay on the track we need to. Because it could have imploded in here anytime along.
And we've had situations where not very far from us, things did tend to blow up.
Yeah.
And I know situations where there have been people that, you know, walked through Reading, or in their protest, they walked from Reading to West Reading and were, you know, treated extremely well in Reading and got to West Reading, were not treated well. And that's just facts.
So is there anything you need from us or anything, questions?
Just your approval would be much appreciated. Do that and continue to do what I do. I appreciate that. And I'm very honest, I'm really seriously thinking about, I'd like to be a part of the city council.
Okay, well,
That's a whole other issue.
that's another 4 years now. too, unless you want to be council president.
No, I'm not gonna be president. I could. Not right now, yes, that's something I like, and something that in the back of my mind. Okay, they go down. I really just do. But other than that, just approve me to continue on to do what I do.
And this can happen next Monday is when we will vote on
Right.
appointments. Okay,
Not a problem.
No,
But okay, ask me a question. You asked me what would I try. I don't know what I should do. If it's viable. We good?
we're
Very
good.
good. Thank you.
Sorry, just for Martin.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in.
Downstairs, you can't have these two can't be.
I know that.
Yeah. Like that. You know, and then want to do this. Thank you so much.
All right,
Thank you.
here we are.
Okay.
So we have Mr. Capone on,
We do?
you here? So we're ready to start? Mr. Capone,
No,
you're still on mute, or maybe Shelley has to unmute you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I'm getting.
Okay.
Okay,
Sometimes I don't press the proper buttons once in a while. I should, but
we should all give ourselves a pat on the back for mastering technology, right?
yep.
Okay, so, we are here for, a reappointment interview. I think I know, you, Marcia, good minutes, I've been on this committee probably since I got on council. Very much appreciate you coming in for the interview, and I just have my colleagues, you might know, Chris Miller.
Yes.
I'm from District 6. Good to see you.
Okay.
Okay, so, just to, give us an idea why you'd like to be reappointed and, you know, some of your thoughts on, zoning.
Okay. Well, if you've read my application, was the same application, just about the same application I gave a couple times. I believe this would be my 15th year signing up for this position. I really enjoy participating in this process. I've learned so much about the city. I've learned so much about the residents of the city. I'm pleased to see the growth. I was a boy that grew up on Tappahocken Street, 659 Tappahocken Street, which is now the gateway to the city. And I see those homes now bringing $100,000. It is an amazing fact. When my parents bought that house, I think they paid $2,500 back in the 30s for that home. And so I enjoy seeing that kind of growth. And of course, I enjoy working with my associates, Mr. Rabina and Mr. Fox and others. We believe that we're a pretty good team. We know that sometimes we may irritate a few people, but we try to make good decisions. We try, as by the code, we're supposed to give deference in reality to the applicant as best we can. If we can sort of lead the applicant toward a successful process, that's our job, as long as we don't offend the zoning code. It's an interesting process, given that sometimes we have people, and we work with this very carefully. Some people come to us with what we refer to as an after the fact application. They've already made some conversion, and that really is upsetting. And the blame sometimes seems to be, well, the realtor told us that it was a 2-unit apartment or a 3-unit apartment. And then we go about asking the questions. We try and find out how many meters are there and when did this occur. But again, we try, because sometimes it does happen, that it was converted. And of course, there's the time frame. After a certain amount of time, things are no longer valid. But again, we try to be very fair to the people. But again, parking is, as you know, it is our major concern always to try to see if we can handle the parking situation. As a classic example, let me mention, whenever we have a hearing, I'm sure you know that prior to the hearing, we are allowed to go out and visit and observe the properties. Once the hearing has begun, we are not allowed by law to visit the property or talk to the applicant without the approval of the applicant or his or her attorney. So we were very careful on that. So I always make my trips to these properties, and we all, for the most part, visit the properties. We drive around. And the best time to do it, and the most shocking, is on a Sunday morning to see the parking in the city of Reading. Nobody obeys the up to the court. They park almost into the intersection, blocking water meters. It's really a tough situation. So we try to be careful. And I know you, as some board members, know that we've had to turn down some people that wanted to do a daycare center, for instance. And of course, the problem there is when there's the drop off and pickup. And if it's near a school, we already have the drop off and pickup of the parents. And if you've been around the buildings, you know what that's like in the morning. Traversing the city of Reading during the school day, early in the morning and after school, is quite a task in its own. So basically, I would say that that's our main job, to be fair to the public, to watch out as best we can with the parking. I know, for instance, there's this situation with 601 Penn Street. That was a big discussion with us. The attorney wanted to, there was a push to make it, as you know, 1.5 parking spaces per each unit. Well, there was a push to make it only 0.5 or 0.4 per unit, which would increase the ability to have more people. But again, that sometimes can cause a problem. But anyway, I've given you a few of my concerns. Anything you would like to ask me about, I'd gladly love to respond.
I just have a quick question. Since you've been on the board and this is a reappointment, are there anything that you see as an existing board member that you feel would be an improvement or a change to the way the zoning board functions, or one of the zoning laws that should be changed?
Okay, changing law, that's a major problem. But for instance, here's a couple things that we talk about in our meetings and our work sessions. As you know, there's this rule: if somebody can find, they want to put up an apartment out, they want to rent an apartment, a person has and wants to rent out apartments. And there was not enough, turns out there are one parking space or two spaces short. So they try to find, if they can find parking within 300 feet of that apartment house. There's sometimes, well, okay, well, that's okay. But we found out over the years that people were renting out the same spaces within this 300-foot, and it happened a couple times. I have a parking lot here. Well, yeah, you can park here, you can park here. But several years ago, there was a very neat thing done. We now have a rather elegant parking lease form for the city of Reading, where the person has to fill that out and has to be reviewed each year. So indeed, if there is a reserved off-site parking spot that somebody's willing to give for a fee, we now have this form. I don't know if you haven't seen it, take a look at it. It's rather elegant. And it applies, of course, to anybody who would be renting out a space. And it's a neat thing, a really neat thing to have. And because just as a person speaking, as you know, think about this for a moment. To have this joy of having an apartment, to having a parking space 300 feet away from your front door. Now think about that for a minute. That's a football field. A football field is 100 yards, which is 300 feet. People don't want to park. They fight like the devil to be within 10 feet of their front door, as you know. So it's a major concern for us. So that's one of the things we hope we can keep a handle on. And the other thing that we hope that we can really see is some more involvement with the parking authority, that that people realize that there's different kind of parking within our wonderful parking lots, the most expensive of which is reserved parking. But we have to be careful with that. It's very, very expensive. But then there's people, they can just get just a sort of a little agreement that they can park there. But the only thing is, it's available. But if, for instance, it's the night of a major event in the city of Reading, they may have the ability to say we can park in there. But if they come home and it's parked in for an event at Santander or other places, then they're out of luck. So without having the reserve space, which is very expensive, it gets to be a problem. So I would hope that we can really work, and you as council people can really work with us and the parking authority to encourage people, if they do sign up with parking within the city of Reading at our wonderful parking lots, that they realize that it's a nice parking situation, but without being reserved, it's very general in purpose, not an absolute. So that's the two of the major things for me.
I think I can follow up. I'm serving on the parking work group representing city council. I can bring that up at our next meeting as far as needs to be more collaboration with zoning as far as clarity on parking rules and such. But I think you bring up a lot of good points. So at this point in the process, and you've been through this so many times before, we will bring your name forward for reappointment next Monday, okay?
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for appearing tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you for reapplying.
All right.
Have a good evening.
Good night.
Okay, Shelley, anything else?
Nothing else.
Right, that will conclude the meeting for this evening. Thank you.
Yeah.